Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Today we have a special guest coming back on the show. We've got Karaan from Wingriders to give us an update on Wingriders, and for anybody that's new to the project or Karaan, maybe give us a little bit of an introduction on himself and Wingriders. So how are you doing, Karaan?
Doing well. Thanks for having us back all in crypto. So great to be here again. Yeah, I'm Karaan. I'm the spokesperson for Wingriders. We're an DEX on Cardano, utilizing now Stableswap and conventional sort of pools as well. So constant product pools as well, and where you can come and swap, provide liquidity, and gain kind of 6 types of gains by providing liquidity and farming, which I think is quite a record. Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. And we haven't talked for a while, so there's been a lot of progress. I'm sure you're going to come to those, and I can discuss it then.
Yeah, for sure. What I'm going to do is actually leave a link, of course, a link to where you can find Wingriders. The website, the Twitter, the DApp will all be in the description. I'll also leave a link to our previous interviews that we've done, because we've had Karaan, we've had Liam on as well to talk to us about Wingriders quite a few times, where we spoke about the DEX in a little bit more detail. But really, I was excited to have you guys on. We've seen the introduction of stablecoins to Cardano with Jed, and we've got more on the horizon. I'd love it if you could give us an update about what you guys have been up to since we last spoke. Now, there's a lot to cover there, but just some of the main things that you've been up to.
I'll keep it as brief as possible. Yeah, so we're now a kind of full-fledged DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, run by our DAO members, our riders, who are essentially WRT token holders. The WRT token is the governance token with lots of utilities as well. So if you hold those, you're a member of our DAO, whereby you can come onto the sort of DAO governance portal, and you can vote. Well, you can discuss various changes, improvements, whatever kind of changes you feel might be interesting for the DEX itself. Then from there, you can come up with a proposal. From that proposal, which is again posted on IPFS, where everyone can see it, and you can see it obviously on our governance portal as well. You can start voting. The voting is very transparent and open. The system is very easy to use in a way, and everything's kind of there for everyone to actually see on chain. The parts of it that are on chain, majority is on chain. And once the voting has happened, obviously the counting happens, and the counting can also be audited via some open source tools that we've provided on GitHub. So that's been one of the kind of major developments since we spoke last. We unlocked, after the token sale, the actual kind of token utility. One of the major ones was the boosting vault. The boosting vault is another very interesting functionality, whereby, like, by holding the WRT token, say you've provided liquidity, you've got your ADA, which is auto stake. So you're getting the gains from that. You're getting the fees, obviously, from any swaps that happen within that pool. Then you can take the LPTs, liquidity provider tokens, and put them into a farm. So we've had lots of partnerships there. So we've got multiple now double yield farms with lots of good projects, whereby you get obviously WRT there, and you get those tokens. Now, the boosting vault, by just holding WRT, will give you an added yield boost, which is really nice, of more WRT. So you got multiple gains. And I mentioned 6. So some of our early riders and supporters, and the people who really kind of kickstarted us right at the beginning and stayed with us till now, they also receive these fungible tokens. So by holding those as well, they get another sort of, if you like, gain on that. So yeah, that's the boosting vault has definitely been another addition to everything else. We're obviously constantly upgrading the whole UI and the user experience. The UI is becoming, in terms of the swap, if you like, sort of interface and functionalities, we're going to have a lot more sophisticated tools there. Watch this space, whereby it looks like the normal, if you like, I'll call it trading kind of platform that you would use even on a SEX. So that's very useful. I know that's an interest area of yourselves. And yeah, so lots of developments like that, and then continuous. And now, obviously, the stable swap pools, which is the first. So, which you can think of Wingriders now as the best of both worlds between Uniswap V2 and Kerr Finance. So, I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot more.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been busy, to say the least. And talking about the Wingriders token launch, there's many things, you know. I've been about since the first DEXs, like yourself. You know, with Uniswap, I was a part of the airdrop that happened with Uniswap. And then we had things like Sushi Swap, which were just a vampire attack of Uniswap. And we've seen many, many DEXs on many different chains, you know, over the past 4 years or however long it's been since the first one. And one thing I like about Wingriders is they do things differently. Even with the token launch, for example, most DEXs launch their token pre the actual DEX, whereas Wingriders did it the opposite way around. They actually launched the DEX and then let people sort of try it out and say, if you want, you know, to get your hands on the token, if you enjoy the DEX, then that's something you can do. So there's been loads of innovations that I think Wingriders have brought to the DEX space, generally, not just within Cardano, that has made me such a fan of the project. But you mentioned stablecoins. We saw the introduction of, I think we've got 2 stablecoins now. We've got what Indigo are doing with their RUSD and JED.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, actually, I thought that we only have 2. There are others in development, obviously, but I heard some sort of ones that I've never mentioned, I've never heard of before as well. So, but yes, at the moment we've got the I assets, and one of the I assets is obviously IUSD, and you mentioned JED as well. So really, if you like, the going live of JED was the initiation of how we could actually go to mainnet with the Stableswap pool. And the Stableswap pool we currently have is actually the only one on Cardano, which is the first as well. We can see a whole host of, I think, other stable coins coming into Cardano very soon. But I mean, before I go into that, I mean, there's just, you know, maybe for the uninitiated, obviously you've got a variety of flavors of stable coins. And I think it's important to note that each of them has its own sort of, if you like, pros and cons as well. And we should always be aware of the cons as well. You know, for instance, you could have, I'm sure we're soon going to have bridge assets coming through to Cardano through multi-chain. But we also know that, for instance, any bridge asset will have vulnerabilities at the bridge level, and they could always get hacked. So be aware. So do your research, you know, in general. So I'll stop there because I've just gone on.
Yeah, no. It's appreciated. You know, all these different stable coins, you are right, that they have their own different functions, whether it be algorithmic, whether it be synthetic, or whether, you know, I recently interviewed Emergo's managing director about their Anzen project, which is coming up with a fiat-backed stablecoin, AUSD, which is still yet to launch. I'm not sure whether the interview will be out before this one that I'm doing with you or after. But you know, stable coins are extremely important to any ecosystem, and I'd love your take on why are stable coins important.
Yeah, I mean, stable coins, as you mentioned, and in all their flavors, really, are, if you like, a safe haven. And, you know, if you've ever traded or if you've ever bought and sold, what you realize in the cryptocurrency market, we've got a lot of, if you like, volatility. We're not talking about, you know, 0.5% movement a day. We're talking maybe 10, 20% movement a day. And also you've got a very high positive correlation between the tokens as well. So imagine Bitcoin goes up, everything else goes up. Obviously, we know every single coin isn't like that, but there is a high correlation between the thousands of tokens that are out there and the actual sort of, you know, movements they have. So positive or negative correlation also makes for sort of, if you like, danger, especially when it's in a downward direction. So what you do as a trader when, for instance, you're in an ecosystem and you're holding an asset and you need to get out and you're in a decentralized world, obviously we have to take note that in the centralized world, there are obviously, and there have been sort of USDT and other USDC, for instance, that you could use. But in a decentralized ecosystem where there's no stable coins, you have no safe harbor. You haven't got an off-ramp, if you like, an on-chain off-ramp, if you like, that you can go into and stay safe while that movement continues. Or going upwards, again, you've locked in some good profits and you're going to sort of obviously utilize them, but what do you go into, for instance, in the decentralized world? So stablecoins, I think that's their probably primary role that they play. And that's why they're really important to any ecosystem to have. And Cardano now, it's great to see lots of different flavors of them coming in.
Yeah, no, they're super important. Certainly, if you look at what happened last year when people sort of moved out of the market, or many people moved out of the market, it would have been amazing to have a kind of option native to Cardano that you could potentially have gone and farmed with, whether that be providing LP liquidity to a stablecoin swap like what you guys are doing, or whatever it may be. So with your stablecoin swap, I mean, do you envision... I was going to say, how many stable coins do you envision on Cardano? But do you think there's going to be, what kind of stable coins, what sort of demand do you think there's going to be for stable coins? Do you think there's going to be lots of different stable coins coming on Cardano? What are your thoughts on that? Or do you think there's going to just be a few dominant ones?
Yeah, I think we're going to have, I've probably mentioned this 3 times over, different flavors of stable coins. So at the moment, we've got obviously synthetic, we've got the iAsset range from Indigo. We've got now JED, which is an algorithmic. As you mentioned, USDA is probably coming soon. We're probably going to have now bridge ones as well, because multi-chain, one of the biggest chain obviously out there, connecting 26, I think it's different L1s, and it's got something like 100 million in trading volume and 5 billion locked in terms of TVL, is going to be bringing it as well. So we're probably going to see USDT, USDC in their bridge formats coming in as well. Any other sorts? Yeah, probably other commodity-backed ones at some stage, with gold, not necessarily fiat ones. They're definitely going to be coming in as well. So it's great to see. And I mean, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? You look at the top 10 coins, what's the most traded ones? And you'll see it's the stable coins. And there's a reason for that. The reason is for that very fact that we mentioned, that going in and out of them is a critical part of sort of trading to lock in your gains or protect from losses. So yeah, I envision there's going to be many more coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. We saw the fall of Ardana, or the ceasefire of Ardana. I don't know what we're calling that at this point. Ardana was actually something I personally was excited about, because I think stable coins are, as you mentioned, such a fundamental part of not just a DeFi ecosystem, a part of trading, a part of everything, really. And it's certainly made me very happy that Wingriders have picked up that torch. I don't know if that was something, and maybe I could ask you this, that you've always had in the back of your mind, or did you see a kind of a gap to be filled there?
No, definitely. I mean, I think it's been a vision that we were waiting for. So when the Nomad Bridge obviously opened, it was good to see liquidity coming in, but unfortunately that didn't end well for Nomad. And, obviously it affected a lot of projects. So yeah, I mean, and the stable swaps we've been kind of preparing and working on, but obviously we only had in our vision one real kind of asset, which was the IUSD, and you can't have a stable swap without another stable coin. So when JED came, we were ready and we launched and we went to mainnet. So yeah, it's something that we were looking forward to, and we're glad to see them. That said, I have to again point to caution that none of these projects are actually backed by us and or promoted by us. We like to see them do well, obviously, but they're independent projects. Always do your own research, have a look at kind of the mechanisms that peg the coin to the US dollar or the asset, or track it. Have a look for yourselves, definitely, because even we're really, if you like, a platform to support the usage of them, the exchange of them, and liquidity provision and sort of farming of them. But we don't actually we're not behind any of these projects. So I have to be very clear about that.
Yeah, no, I think it's very good of you to say that. We know what's happened with prior algorithmic stable coins in the past, obviously Luna. And maybe I could just ask you to touch on some inherent risks with stable coins. You've mentioned, we've mentioned Luna, which of course was a peg failing. Are there any others you can think of off the top of your head? You could see you know, I'll let you maybe answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you some, you know, sort of conceptual types of, if you like, risks that could happen, even with the fiat-backed ones. For instance, they are backed by a central entity again, right? So the central entity puts fiat in a bank and then issues and mints the stable coin. What happens if that sort of, if you like, the reserve is unaudited on a regular basis? We know USDT, for instance, had some issues of whether the actual reserve is really there and whether it's actually fiat backed. And we found out that actually the reserve wasn't necessarily all fiat backed, but other derivatives, etc., etc. So that those could be some of the risks with the fiat ones. You mentioned obviously with the algorithmic one, if for any reason that peg mechanism within the smart contract sort of alters, we can see a disaster. I think Luna was the 9th biggest token at the time, and then with the UST sort of going that way, unfortunately, that's how the algorithmics can sort of destabilize. The tracking ones, so the, if you like, for instance, the synthetic ones, they track through an API as far as I understand, and they're tracking the real world assets. So imagine if there's a problem with the API, there could be a problem with the actual sort of data input of whatever the API is sort of getting the data from. So there could be issues like that. I can't think of any that have actually happened like that off the top of my head, but that could be one. Again, market fluctuations happen to, for instance, commodity ones. So we know gold is fairly stable, but if we get more exotic, if you like, pairings and those assets in themselves become sort of very unstable, obviously that could obviously surmount to a lot of risk. And obviously bridge ones we've seen recently, obviously we saw with the Nomad hack. They are all prone to hacking. It was a famous writer and developer of these kind of interchain protocols that said, look, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365, they are vulnerable. So any release that's done, you got to make sure it's audited. You got to make sure that the kind of whole system is very security-wise, if that makes sense. And I think with the Nomad Bridge one, which is an interesting one, it was an update that was made without a proper audit, left a vulnerability, and a lot of people out of pocket. So yeah, those are some of the, I think, general inherent risks. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't account for any sort of weird and wonderful ways that people come up with backing a stable coin in the future. I mean, I dread to even think.
Yeah, I mean, you've got cryptocurrency ones as well, right? So
yeah, of
cryptos
course.
in themselves, you know, they're quite vulnerable. But yeah, let's see. I mean, it's an exciting, I think, environment.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, you know, when we look at kind of the Cardano ecosystem, it's a very kind of new ecosystem in terms of DeFi. A year and a bit, if you like, since Bluetooth, and really it's still developing, and it's good to see this coming in. It's got a very good secure layer 1 to work on, and all the DeFi protocols, as long as they're doing the right things, we see a lot of different sort of DeFi services emerging, and it's great to see. It's exciting, I think, for everyone, and we're believers.
Yeah, me too. You know, for me, you guys are my go-to DEX. You know, and it's for a number of reasons. Some of them I've mentioned. I don't want this to go on for too long and mention all the others. But you are right. It's very, very exciting what's going on right now. And I think I was looking on DeFi Llama, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here. We've already seen a huge impact with what Jed's done thus far in terms of volumes that we've seen on dApps. I think, was it the highest volume day for Wingriders just the other day? I may have that mistaken. Could be.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of liquidity come in. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's the biggest kind of liquidity in a stable swap, which is great to see. It's the only stable swap, but a lot of liquidity coming in, and that's a wonderful thing to see. The whole ecosystem's had a nice boost, and obviously, it's the stable coins in terms of volume will definitely have, I think, an effect on raising that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So maybe it would be nice for us to move on to the actual stablecoin swap on Wingriders. You know what it is and how does it work?
Yeah, I think just to simplify things, I think we should first of all look at what types of DEXs there are. There's order book DEXs, there's AMM DEX or automated market maker DEXs. Yeah, the AMM DEXs, they use a function to enable the swaps and the exchange rate to be established. The usual sort of function that's used is a constant product model, which is X times Y equals K. So this formula essentially keeps the balance of the tokens at a constant level at any price. The other model that's sometimes used is the actual constant sum sort of model, where the prices of the two assets, if you like, are kept constant. So X is always equal to Y. Now, the stable swap, if you like, invariant as it's called, the constant product one has a curve like this. So at the curve, what it does is it flattens that part of the curve, which is the optimum range between the peg, if you like, area. And that's really, really important for stabilizing the price. And it's a little bit more complex, obviously, but what it does is it kind of, if you like, it steadies the movement. So what you get with these pools, with the stable swap pool, is you get a lot less price impact, a lot less slippage. For the liquidity providers, you get a lot less also impermanent loss. And obviously that happening, you'll get a lot more volumes coming in, a lot more liquidity, and obviously a lot more fees for the liquidity providers. So that's what it does in a nutshell. It's the middle ground, if you like, between the two functions that I discussed, and it really makes the trading efficient, not just for stable coins, but stable assets. Now, just to briefly explain that, so obviously we've got stable coins which have a 1-to-1 ratio. One JED is equal to one IUSD, right? So those are stable coins, easy to understand. But obviously, when we get, for instance, say, bridged Bitcoin or Ethereum coming in, we could easily pair that with the I assets of Indigo, so IF and IBTC, into a stable swap pool. So if you got, say, bridged BTC with IBTC, they can go into a pool because really they are the same value. They track in one way or another or peg to the price of Bitcoin, and you can also trade those, and again sort of have a lot more price impact, a lot less price impact, a lot less slippage, and a lot less sort of impermanent loss. So it works for both types, stable assets and stable coins.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't even think about that, actually. If you've got two forms of Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever it may be, I was going to say two forms of Cardano, but you wouldn't need two forms of Cardano, right? You could essentially pair them. And actually, another thing that I want to ask you is, I'm sure that you guys, if you're willing to sort of pair one form of Bitcoin with another, there's no reason why your stablecoin swap can't be euro against euro or these other kind of stable coins that we see coming around.
Absolutely, yeah. Anything that has the same value, if you like, yeah, in different flavors. So you've got, as you said, for instance, it could be, imagine if Indigo comes in with a IEUR, and then we get a bridged or a wrapped, if you like, EUR. It's exactly the same, because those coins really are tracking the value of the euro. And the euro value is the same. Now, they obviously track it or they're pegged to it in different ways, but they are actually 1-to-1 in terms of ratio. One can be exchanged for the other for the same value. And that's the key thing to obviously take away from that. And obviously, when we launched this, I talked about security a lot. They've been fully audited, the stable swap pools by CertiK, and really kind of zero material findings were found, which is great to see. So everything we do must be done securely, and we had these. And also to say that we still have our constant product pools, yeah, because they work really well for volatile assets, because you can always trade them at any price. The only thing is, when you get sort of big trades coming in relative to the pool, you get a lot of movement sort of down, up the curve, if that makes sense. So slippage might be higher, but it still can be traded even in kind of highly fluctuating markets. So they still have a role. They're fully audited. They're still functional, of course, on our DEX. But this is just a new way of bringing in hopefully new assets. And that's what we need in Cardano. We need a lot more liquidity coming in, either through bridges or any other means, obviously, and converting that. Imagine, so you bring your you bring in your bridge BTC, you convert it to IBTC, suddenly you've got liquidity in a Cardano sort of native, if you like, sort of synthetic asset.
Yeah, no, and this is the thing about Wingriders. Again, I said it at the start, and I'll say it again. You're innovating the DEX space and bringing multiple functions, not just a basic vanilla DEX that you could just vampire off another one. It really is impressive what you guys are doing, and I'm fully behind it and support it.
It's great to be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and you guys absolutely deserve it. And I think it's again, it's just exciting to see where this is going. I mean, we're probably going to be talking 5 years from now, and I'll have a little bit less hair.
Tell me about it. It's receding every day.
I know, and well, it'll be totally bald by then, I'm sure. But there'll be ways that we've not even thought that Wingriders was going to progress and innovate that might seem very simple and basic then, but we've not even stumbled, or when that happens, that we've not even stumbled upon just yet. Now, can I bring us onto your Zap In function? Because this is something that I don't think we've spoke about yet, but I'm certainly interested and would love your take on it.
Sure, yeah. The Zap In function ties in with the Stableswap pool and pools to come. What it is literally if you're not holding both tokens, for instance, because obviously most pools at the moment are binary pools, so you've got two assets in there. If you're holding just one of the assets, you can zap in, and by zapping in, swap is done and liquidity provided in the equal ratio to the pool. So in a way, you actually save on an extra swapping fee and a batcher fee, which we have on Cardano. So that's one way. So if you've also got an uneven amount of either, which is not the same ratio as the pool itself, so you got that uneven ratio in your pool of the two tokens that you want to add, you can do exactly the same, and it figures it out, and you can zap in. Noteworthy, I think, is that it's not a zap out function. So when you take out your liquidity, you have to take it within the portion or that's within there. So if the proportion is 50-50, you take out 50-50 of the tokens, not the single token. But the zap in function is, I think, really for convenience and fee saving really at the moment. So that's a very interesting one that you can just turn on with a little slider and you're done. Press the button and go, provide liquidity.
Yeah, just another sort of innovative function that Wingriders are bringing to the table. Karaan, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Have you got any sort of a closing statement before I love and leave you?
No, likewise, yeah, it's been great to see you again, all in crypto. Just anyone who's not familiar with the DEX, please check out wingriders.com. We've got all our socials there. Join our community on Discord, and obviously stay tuned with Twitter and Telegram. So thank you very much for having us, and great to see you again.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see you too. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure we'll do this again for another update at some point. That was Karaan from Wingriders. A link in the description to everything Wingriders, their website, where you can find them, their Discord link, you name it, it's going to be in the description. So be sure to go and check it out, and go and check the DApp out and have a little play around for it yourself. Thank you very much, Karaan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.